Today, we have the honor of speaking with Governor John Carney, who has served as Delaware's governor since 2017. As his tenure comes to an end, he is preparing for a unique transition from the state's highest office to what many consider the state's most challenging, Mayor of Wilmington. Hello, Kerwin Gaines here, and welcome to the agenda. Today, we're going to discuss Governor John Carney's motivations for taking on his new role, the legacy he leaves behind as governor, and most importantly, the pressing issues in education and its challenges right here in Delaware. As the state grapples with declining test scores and growing concerns about equity and proficiency, we'll ask how these issues will inform his vision for Wilmington and a larger role he sees for the city, like Wilmington's shaping educational outcomes statewide. Governor Carney, thank you for joining us today right here on the agenda.
It's great to be with you again.
We appreciate you, sir. We really do. As always, you've been there. We've been picking up trash together. We've delivered turkeys together. We've done it all. And thank you very much for this opportunity. I wanted to talk to you as you transition, right? We see each other at events, and how many debates did we do this year together? I think
several.
Several.
You did a great job, I must say that. Thank you for that. Those are important to get a kind of even-handed approach to it. I thought it was really good.
I think it was good too, and I think that the public was well informed.
Yeah,
I think at the end of every debate, they knew a little bit more.
It was really all about the issues, issues that people cared about. It wasn't about personal, it wasn't about negative, and that's my preference, obviously, and I think that's my opponent's preference as well.
Yeah, no tomatoes were thrown or anything, so it went well. But I wanted to have an opportunity to speak with you as you transition to your new position as mayor of the city of Wilmington. It's a big thing. What you're doing now is still a big thing, and I kind of wanted, just the same way that we were doing at the debates, where we were letting people know what your thoughts were. And as we transition and as you transition, I'm very interested to know your thoughts on some items like education. It's such a big issue right now, Governor. We're dealing with it a lot here on DETV. Many of the conversations that we're having and researching, we're seeing all of the roots, the branches of education, how it affects so many things here in the state, right? And basically, President Trump has made it clear as mud, basically, that there is an intention of getting rid of the Department of Education on a federal level and reverting those funds and legislation back to the states. And if that comes to play, Wilmington may play another role in having their own school district and doing these, dealing with education directly. Do you foresee that, and how does that play into how you left the Department of Education now?
Far be it from me to predict what the next president is going to do. I mean,
Smart.
We need to, I guess, take him for his word that he wants to eliminate the Department of Education. I think the issue more for us locally would be, and particularly here in the city of Wilmington, is what happens to the federal funds, most of which go to children from disadvantaged backgrounds. So Title I funding, which helps as we're teaching the young students how to read. That's critically important. One of the things, frankly, that we're not doing as well as we need to here in Wilmington and across the state for that matter. So it's really about those funds. As governor, my administration did create what we call opportunity funding, which builds on Title I funding, additional funds for low-income students and English learners. And so if you're a student in the city of Wilmington in one of the schools here, the per student spend by the school districts is north of $30,000 a year. In the suburban schools, it's $20,000 to $23,000 or $4,000. So there's more resources here, but we're not getting the better results. And I think that's the challenge. It's something that's, as you said, we've heard a lot about recently. We're very high ranked in terms of funding per student, but not in terms of the return on that investment. And as mayor, which is one of the reasons I've decided to run for mayor, was to continue to work on the education issue. That'll be a top priority for us. And it's really about the city's role, getting extra time for the children after school, weekends, and summertime in partnership with the school districts.
Yeah, I've always said that one of the true issues that we have right now in regards to education is not what happens from 8 to 3. It's about what happens from 3 to 8, so to
Exactly.
speak. What do we do? How do we deal with some of those deficits? And some of the problems that I had, and I talked about it during the debates, was transparency in regards to the vendors, right? That were the contractees that were having to help facilitate some of these other things going on in the community from those hours. What are we doing? What are we doing to ensure that we're actually getting the dollars worth out of that we're seeing the real bite and change?
Yeah, and I think we have to ask that question with everything that we do, almost with every penny that is spent. Why are we spending money and not getting the return on that investment? And particularly, to your point, with folks that are on contract with the school districts and they're getting money to deliver a service and to get results from that service. And it should be pretty straightforward to determine if a particular reading program is effective in getting our youngins to be able to read proficiently by 3rd grade. What we know is that the research suggests that the thing that works the most is what's called high-dose tutoring, one-on-one tutoring. Well, that's very expensive. We do have a provider called Reading Assist, which does exactly that, and they are moving their children so that they can read proficiently and moving them down that pendulum. And we need to do more of that. The problem is, as I say, it's expensive. They're right now doing an investigation or an experiment to see whether they can have 1-on-2 instead of 1-on-1. That increases your productivity or your capacity. You double your capacity just like that if they can get it to work. So that's what we need to focus on and really try to get those. It's not that they can't read, it's that they can recognize the words, they can say the words, but they don't put the meaning and the comprehension. There are those two parts to it as they test the students, and that we need to work hard on that second part. But if they can't read proficiently by 3rd grade, they're in trouble for the rest of their trajectory in 4th grade on and in high school as well.
Yeah, and I love that trajectory. And what scares me, and I'm kind of going off course here just a little bit, bear with me, Gov, is that it affects us when it comes to employment, right? This educational trajectory is putting our students, our children, in a position of being unemployed or underemployed due to their overall education and knowledge. Bringing in businesses from an economic development standpoint, they take a look at that stuff. They take a solid look at that stuff. And because I have teenagers that they need to leave my home eventually, you know what I mean? And I want them to be in the best position possible as well. So, I mean, I worry about that.
Yeah, no, and should. And people like me, elected officials, need to worry about it as well, because it really is what businesses look for as they're looking to locate their jobs in a particular area. And so if they don't see where, or they see where they don't have good schools, they're going to steer in a different direction. And that's on top of the individual success or failure of those children. We have a big issue in the city with respect to kind of gang and neighborhood violence. Well, that in part, that's a function of failure in school, where kids get frustrated and they turn to other things. And so it's all connected, you know, and so we in the city, in connection with the school districts and the state, need to really focus on making sure our students are better prepared to be successful and be better citizens in the neighborhoods in which they live, and ultimately graduate from high school, go on to a career path or on to higher education, and be employed by somebody here in Delaware.
Yeah, hopefully stay in the state. You did a great job. Stay here and pay taxes.
Right.
Your top 3, right? You're looking back at your tenure here, which is ending very sooner than you think. What are your top 3 things that you feel like I left the state better than when I got it?
Yeah, clearly one of the things that, for me, everything starts with a strong and growing economy. And so creating by Executive Order 1, first thing we did, the Delaware Prosperity Partnership, I think has to be up at the top. The economy here in Delaware created 30,000 jobs with a pandemic, a global pandemic right in the middle of it. The DPP itself created and retained over 10,000 jobs, a couple hundred projects, including the Insight project, which probably is the crown jewel of all those. It's going to really light up Rodney Square and in the center of our city. But it's also the small businesses that were helped, the Edge Grant program that we had through the Division of Small Business, probably the most successful effort to support small businesses in the state as long as I can remember. We always struggle with that because all the small businesses, you know, they do very diverse things and services and products, et cetera. And everyone is a little different about what their needs are. So we have this competition where they come in, they tell us what is the one thing that if they got a small grant, $50,000 grant, it could take them to the next level. Buy that second truck or expand into additional warehouse, whatever the case might be. Buy that additional piece of equipment so that they can be more productive. And those grants went to a very diverse group of small businesses, more than 50% disadvantaged businesses, small minority women-owned businesses. And it really strengthens and develops the foundation of our economy, in addition to the large companies with a couple hundred employees that moved to our state. We also focused on employment centers, like the experimental station in Chestnut Run, the DuPont. We partnered with them to bring new businesses there, where before it was always just a DuPont Corporation site. And that's been big for us. But I think, so we're moving, that one thing, and their staff, we brought Kurt Foreman in, a great team working very well with local economic development folks, created 30,000 jobs as part of the economy. So that'd have to be number one. Number two, we talked about education opportunity funding, which is additional resources that go to the children who need it the most, the families that need it the most. In addition to that, I would say early childhood education, the investments more than double the investment in early childhood. We should be seeing the results of those, the stronger, better early education centers on third grade reading scores. And then the third bucket I would put into like a series of community things, from gun safety measures, banning assault weapons, making it more difficult to get a permit to purchase a gun, the straw purchases enforcement, that type of thing, a lot of street enforcement, and then all the different things around clean energy and addressing climate change, and the whole range of it. So I put about 5 different things in 3, in the top 3 that you asked for.
I'm not going to stop
you. They're connected in some kind of way. But it has to start with really good jobs and a strong and growing economy, because if you don't have that, everything else gets harder. Second to that, which is related to the first, is education, and then all the quality of life things that come in a big package there.
I have this bad habit, Gov, where at night, if things aren't going great, I stare at it and I look at the ceiling fan and I watch it spin around and around and around, and I think about all the things I could have done better. The question to you...
I'll have to try that.
Yeah, it's effective. If you had to do over, what are some, say, 3 things that you wish you could have done over?
The one thing was, I wish we would have gotten kids back in school sooner during the pandemic. I mean, it was a failure of leadership, I think. We just weren't able to get it done. People might argue that there was good reasons for that, and the challenge that school personnel had and the fear that they had about catching the virus. I mean, their teachers are used to having winter colds that run through a whole classroom, and so now you have a pretty deadly virus that's doing the same thing. But what we thought we knew was, and that was part of the problem, we didn't know what we didn't know.
Right, you're figuring it out as you go along.
But we didn't know that children were not as much at risk as older people, particularly very old folks that had other pre-existing conditions. But children lost time learning. They lost learning time, and we saw that in the reading and math scores coming out of that. So that's the one regret that I think that we could have done better. We should have leaned into that a little bit more. and the one thing that that kind of stands out as an. There's plenty of things left to do.
Yeah.
My biggest disappointment with all the investments and all the time and energy we spent on education, mostly because of the pandemic, we didn't move those reading scores up like what I've liked to. I think the table is set, though, for the next administration to really move the reading scores, particularly of the third graders, because of the additional resources, because of the literacy coaches that we have in the schools, because of the extra resources that we're putting into early childhood education. Those, I think, will pay off in the years ahead. One of the things I learned when I was first elected, I got credit for things that Governor Markell did. I also got blamed for things that he did or didn't do. My guess is that Governor Meyer will have the same thing. He'll get credit for some of the things that we have some overhang right now and projects that we've been working on that will be announced in the first quarter of next year that'll really real positive in the economy.
And the state has a surplus.
Huge surplus.
Yeah.
When I came in, huge deficit. So very happy about that. I didn't put that in my list. I guess I should have. We turned a $400 million deficit into a $500 million surplus. And that's the result of a strong economy, which is why having good jobs and creating and cultivating a strong economy has to be your number one priority if you're governor.
Yeah. And I'm just wondering, so first to that point, we're going to need that surplus, I think, to deal with some of the big issues that we have here. How that goes about, I don't know. And who takes credit for it? I don't even care. I just want to.
I don't care. At this point, I'm pretty long in the tooth here. One or two more rodeos. So,
in regards to your next rodeo, Wilmington, we're dealing with crime here, but has been on the downtick, so to speak, in regards to murders. There's been some effective public safety measures that are going on. I know that you're planning to continue a lot of those measures, but how do you plan in your administration to deal with some of those issues?
Yeah, first of all is to convince the new administration at the state level to keep what we call group violence intervention in place. Mm-hmm. Because I think that group of mostly social worker types working along with Wilmington Police Department, not along with, there is a separation there, but trying to get to the mostly young men that are involved in these groups and gangs and to get them out, to give them a way out. And it's been successful in part because we've worked hard at it, but it's also part of the reason that the number of shootings is down, we believe pretty strongly. And that we've had stronger enforcement. Just a couple days ago, maybe yesterday, there was an announcement about the Attorney General taking down one gang with a lot of people involved. And that's one of the things that folks, particularly those that don't live in the city, don't really understand. They think that every city neighborhood has got a lot of these shootings and that type of thing. Not the case. That doesn't mean that it's not important everywhere. It is. But these gangs are mostly focused in kind of troubled neighborhoods across the city. In other places, doesn't matter. North side, west side, east side, really good, solid neighborhoods that we've got to work to keep that way at the same time while we're fighting the gun violence in these really difficult neighborhoods. And we've had, as I said, we've made some success there. So my first thing is to convince the new state, the gubernatorial administration, that this is an important tool that we need for the city of Wilmington, and to continue the good work with our Attorney General's office and the Wilmington Police Department.
Yeah. Do you put that communication, that work together? I know you're a pretty optimistic person, and I love that about you. But are you seeing possible road bumps, speed bumps ahead?
I don't, and you're right. I am an optimist. You have to, I think, be an optimist to finish off as governor and take on the challenges, as you said in your opening, maybe the most challenging position in government here in Delaware. But yeah, so I believe strongly in GVI. I've seen the success. I know the people, like John Cook and his team. They're doing a really good job. It's the right approach. It's not the bang them head, lock them up type approach. We do have that, not the bang them head part, but the lock them up part, because some people just say no.
There has to be a consequence.
There's got to be a consequence. We give them an alternative. If they don't take our alternative, then there's a consequence. And I'm optimistic that we can continue to make progress, and we have to make progress because this people that live in those neighborhoods that aren't involved in this activity are kind of prisoners in their own homes, and they tend to be elderly folks that they're towards the end of their lives, and they're not moving anywhere, and so they've got imprisoned in their own houses, and that's just not right.
Yeah. Speaking of houses, and this is funny, and I'm sorry, this isn't funny, but things that happen that we just don't take a look at, and one of those things are the housing crisis that we're having here in Delaware, and I'm seeing it more because it's now happening to my generation. Right? It is very hard for people to even downsize to find a home because they can't get rid of the home that they have, and they can't afford a home and it's like, wow, we've done okay. We're not new people coming into the market, but it's now affecting us and just the overall space. And what I'm not seeing is a lot of construction, right? And Wilmington is no exception to that. And there's only a finite amount of space. What are we planning to do? And it's going to take us as a country, as a state, as a city to come up with some ideas in regards to getting this done. Through the debates, people talked about the housing crisis here and affordable housing for everyone. And the issue is still here. Very interested to know your thoughts on it.
It's a big problem, and at kind of every level, right? Mm-hmm. At the rental, the affordable level for folks that are very poor. A lot of those folks are elderly, so they're not working. There's not an opportunity to work, so you need, public housing, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And there's more public housing in the city of Wilmington than just about any other jurisdiction in our state. We have to have a mix. We can't have all, low-income housing because then you don't have any tax base. So you got to have a mix of affordable housing at the low end, rental housing, home ownership at the mid-level end, at every level, and then as people graduate up to downsized apartment buildings. Mm-hmm. As I do our public meetings, and we have one tonight, people will complain about new apartment buildings that are very expensive. Well, we need those too. Yeah. That's part of the tax base. Those taxpayers pay for police coverage and all the other services that we have in the city. So it is you've got to do it all to the extent you can, and it's very, very expensive. Mm-hmm. It really requires federal assistance, state assistance. We've had more affordable housing projects in general that are not subsidized. The apartment buildings that I just talked about are not subsidized, and then when you have subsidized and affordable housing at a mid and lower range, more so than any other time that I've been doing this in 30 years, mostly because of the federal money coming into the state. So we've taken, if you go around the east side, say around from the new Pritchett Academy going north to the river, you've got whole blocks on Bennett Street that have been taken down with new townhouses built up, and across the city, east side, in the hilltop area, lower hilltop and above, we have the land bank, which goes in and takes vacant houses, fixes them up, and makes them available in an affordable way to a home buyer. So that's a really important investment. It is onesie twosies. It's not like a whole block.
Right.
So we have a series of that, and then of course the crown jewel is what we're doing in the old Riverside projects, the Reach Riverside projects, which is basically developing new, both rental and units for home ownership. And, to really understand how significant and comprehensive that is, you got to go out there and you got to go and see it. And it's across the street from Eastlake, which is a similar kind of thing, home ownership with rentals in the same neighborhood. I was out there knocking on doors and meeting the folks that live there. It's really a good neighborhood as we're trying to build across the street. Investments in Kingswood Community Center to make it more attractive. We've been having our public meetings there at the Team Warehouse, which is part of that project as well. So it's very comprehensive. that Logan Herring is doing a great job on.
He is. He's doing a great job in really beautifying that area, and something that they haven't seen there for a very long time.
Since they were first built, probably right after the war.
Right.
World War II, that is.
I've been looking a little bit with your transition team and the emails that have been going out and your website, but what is going to be the top 3 things that you're going to, or top 2 things at least, that you're going to jump on as soon as you get to the office?
Yeah, it's got to be public safety, public safety, neighborhood stabilization, and then I would say education, even though education is not an official function of the government. The first thing that I have to do, though, is assemble a staff. I've been really lucky so far that Saran Cade, who's my budget director at the state, somebody I know well, we've got a 10-year plus relationship. I trust him implicitly, and vice versa. He's going to come on as chief of staff. He's going to do a great job. And so we'll have a build from there, a really strong team with economic development, with some of the public works agencies that are so important for people across the city, and the staff in the mayor's office, which will be focused primarily on engaging people in the communities, meeting them where they are, making sure that they understand what our vision is, that we're there for them. And I was, as I said, we knocked on 11,000 doors. People really appreciate seeing you there, the opportunity to share their point of view with you. We're having the town hall meeting tonight as part of the transition. I expect to do more of that as we get going with the new administration, get out and really get to know all the neighborhoods and the people there and the problems that they're facing, so that they can at least be heard. We may not be able to fix the problem, but at least they feel like the city and the mayor is there and is concerned about the things that bother them every day. Because we want them to stay. We want them to stay, and we want them to feel like this is a great place to live, much like I do and have for almost 40 years now.
Yeah. Governor, thank you so much for joining us here today. We appreciate it. As always, you've been a big supporter here on the agenda and making sure that people know about what's going on. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
And thank you. Let me say something about what we heard the other night. We talked about GVI. Nobody in the room knew anything about GVI. We talked about all these other things as people were complaining about this or that or the other thing that wasn't happening. And what was clear to me is we need to do a better job of getting the word out about what actually is happening out there. And so this is a vehicle for doing that. You would think with all the social media that it'd be easier today than it was in the days of traditional media with TV and newspapers. Yeah. Not the case.
It's not. People have to want to know the knowledge. That's the first part. But then you have to color it so they do. You have to.
You got to present it in a way that is attractive to them and not boring for them. You know. And so that'll be a challenge for us as well. And I think if I'm out in the community more often, meeting with people, talking to people, being more accessible, having regular town hall meetings, I think that'll create a better feeling of openness and communication that'll be important for us to gain the trust of the people that we work for.
Absolutely, and if you want to do them here, you're more than welcome.
Hey, we'll be back.
We appreciate it. And Governor, we appreciate you. Thank you for 8 years of wonderful service. We appreciate it. And we know that you will continue in the city of Wilmington doing great things.
Going to do my best. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for joining us right here on the agenda. We look forward to seeing you next time, right here.